Omari Matthews never thought a woman could make him sweat until Latoya Price walked into his office like a storm wrapped in Chanel. The Atlanta skyline glowed behind her, but all Omari could see was fire in her eyes. Latoya slammed the contract on his desk so hard his coffee cup jumped. "You promised me results, Mr. Matthews," she said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Instead, you gave me excuses and empty promises." Omari stood up, buttoning his navy suit jacket. He was 6'3" of smooth confidence, with waves fresh from the barber and a smile that usually melted hearts. But Latoya wasn't melting. She was a billionaire tech queen, 52 years old, with silver locks cascading down her back, skin like polished mahogany, and a stare that could freeze lava. "Miss Price, if you just—" "I'm done listening," she snapped. Her diamond rings caught the light as she pointed at him. "You cost my company $3 million because you couldn't close one simple deal." Omari felt his jaw tighten. Nobody talked to him like this. "With all due respect, you're the one who changed the terms last minute." Latoya stepped closer. She smelled like expensive perfume and power. "Are you really talking back to me?" Their eyes locked. The air between them crackled like lightning before thunder. Omari's heart pounded in his chest, not from fear, but from something else entirely, something dangerous. "Maybe I am," he said quietly. Latoya's lips curved into the smallest smile. "Interesting." She turned and walked out, her heels clicking like a countdown. Omari collapsed into his chair, breathing hard. What just happened? He'd faced down CEOs, closed million-dollar deals, charmed his way through impossible situations, but Latoya Price, she was different. She was terrifying. And somehow that made her the most attractive woman he'd ever met. Latoya couldn't stop thinking about the man who dared to challenge her, and that annoyed her more than the failed contract. 3 days passed. Latoya sat in her penthouse office overlooking Buckhead, trying to focus on quarterly reports. But her mind kept drifting back to Omari's face, that moment when he stood his ground instead of cowering like everyone else did. She hated admitting it, but there was something magnetic about his defiance. Her assistant Keisha knocked and entered with coffee. "You've been staring at that same page for 20 minutes, boss." Latoya sighed. "I'm fine." "Is this about that fine man from the Matthews firm?" Keisha grinned. "Girl, I saw him in the lobby last week. He is trouble with a capital T." "He's incompetent," Latoya said, but her voice lacked conviction. That's why you've been checking his LinkedIn 3 times a day." Latoya shot her a look, but before she could respond, her phone buzzed. An email from Omari. "Miss Price, I owe you an apology and a better solution. Dinner tonight?" Her finger hovered over the delete button. This was unprofessional, inappropriate. He worked for a partner firm and she was a billionaire who didn't have time for games. But something about his boldness intrigued her. He wasn't afraid of her wealth or her reputation. Against her better judgment, she typed, 7 p.m., the Capitol Grill. Don't be late. That evening, Omari arrived 5 minutes early, wearing a charcoal gray suit that fit him perfectly. Latoya watched him from across the restaurant, noting how he commanded attention without trying. When he saw her, his smile was genuine. No slick salesman grin, just warmth. "You came," he said, pulling out her chair. "I'm a businesswoman. I'm always open to better solutions." But as they talked, laughed, and debated over steak and wine, Latoya realized this wasn't about business anymore. Omari listened to her stories, challenged her ideas, and treated her like a woman, not just a billionaire boss. When their hands accidentally touched, reaching for the breadbasket, neither pulled away. Jalen Just Cooper took one look at his friend's goofy smile and knew Omari was in trouble. "Man, you glowing like you just hit the lottery," Jess said, sliding into the booth at their favorite soul food spot in Southwest Atlanta. The smell of fried chicken and collard greens filled the air. "Who is she?" "I don't know what you're talking about." Omari tried to play it cool, cutting into his cornbread. "Negro, please. Jess laughed, his locks bouncing. I know you since Howard University. You got that same look you had junior year when you dated 3 girls at once and thought you'd get away with it. Omari winced at the memory. That was different. I was young and stupid. And now you're 32 and stupid. Just lean forward. Bro, when you gonna settle down? Stop running through women like they're client contracts. The words stung because they were true. Omari had built a reputation as a playboy, smooth talker, commitment phobe, love him and leave him type. But Latoya felt different. She challenged him, made him want to be better. What if I told you I met someone special? Omari said quietly. Jess's eyes widened. For real? Who? Before Omari could answer, his phone exploded with texts, all from Latoya. His stomach dropped as he read them. You used me. This was about the contract all along. You're just like every other man. What the? Omari dialed her number, but she didn't pick up. Jess frowned. What happened? I don't know. Omari's hand shook. After their amazing dinner, they'd shared a kiss goodnight, soft, slow, full of promise. Then she invited him up for coffee. One thing led to another, and they spent the night together. It was passionate, real, vulnerable. Omari had never felt so connected to anyone. But now she thought he played her. I gotta fix this, Omari said, throwing money on the table. Omari, wait, Jess called after him. Maybe she's right. Maybe you need to look at yourself first. But Omari was already out the door, desperate to prove his feelings were genuine. He didn't realize that desperation would lead him down a much darker path. Standing outside Latoya's building at midnight, Omari recognized his past was a ghost he couldn't outrun. The doorman recognized him and reluctantly let him up. Omari's heart hammered as he rode the elevator to the penthouse. When Latoya opened the door, her face was cold, beautiful, and closed off. She wore a silk robe, arms crossed. You have 2 minutes, she said. Omari stepped inside. Her place was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows, art on every wall, the smell of vanilla candles, but none of it mattered. Latoya, please, whatever you heard. I didn't hear anything. Her voice was ice. I researched. You think I became a billionaire by trusting blindly. She pulled out a phone and showed him screenshots. Articles about his reputation, social media posts from ex-girlfriends warning others about smooth-talking Omari Matthews. Even a blog post titled How He Plays the Game. Omari felt sick. That's my past. I'm not that person anymore. Really? Latoya's eyes blazed. Because 3 weeks ago, you failed to close my contract. Then suddenly, you asking me to dinner, making me laugh, kissing me, sleeping with you? Tell me, Omari, was that real or was it strategy? It was real, his voice cracked. Latoya, I know I've made mistakes. I've hurt people. I've used my charm to get what I wanted in business and in life. But you're different. You make me want to be the man I should have been all along. Latoya's expression softened for just a second, but then she hardened again. Words are easy, Omari. Your track record speaks louder. Then let me prove it, he pleaded. Give me a chance to show you I'm serious. Silence stretched between them like a chasm. Finally, Latoya spoke, her voice barely a whisper. I've been used before, Omari, by men who wanted my money, my connections, my name. I swore I'd never let it happen again. She looked at him with eyes full of hurt. I'm sorry for everything I've done to anyone, but especially to you. Latoya walked to the door and opened it. Good night, Omari. As he left, Omari felt something break inside him. Not just his heart, his entire world view. For the first time in his life, he understood what it felt like to lose something precious because of who he'd been. He just didn't know his biggest test was still coming. When Richard Whitmore called Omari into his office Monday morning, the last thing Omari expected was an order to break someone's heart. Richard sat behind his massive oak desk, cigar smoke curling around his white hair. He was the senior partner at Whitmore and Associates, the man who'd given Omari his start, and someone Omari respected and feared. "Sit down, Matthews," he commanded. Omari sat down, his stomach already churning. After the disaster with Latoya, he'd spent the weekend questioning everything, his career, his choices, his future. "You look like hell," Richard observed. "Woman troubles?" "Something like that." Richard waved dismissively. "Forget about her. I've got a new assignment that'll make you forget your own name." He slid a folder across the desk. Anakan 28 years old, heiress to the Anakan pharmaceutical fortune, worth $200 million, set to inherit another $500 when his father retires next year. Omari opened the folder. A beautiful woman stared back at him, deep brown skin, bright eyes, natural hair and a halo of curls. She looked kind, innocent, nothing like the sharks they usually dealt with. A cold feeling crept up Omari's spine. "Sir, what are you asking me to do here?" Richard leaned forward, his eyes hard. "I'm asking you to do what you do best, Matthews. Charm her, win her trust, get us a meeting with her financial team. I don't care if you have to join her church choir. Just make it happen." Omari thought of Latoya's face when she accused him of using her. He thought of all the women he'd played games with over the years. He thought of the man he wanted to become. "No," he said quietly. Richard's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me?" "I said no. I'm not doing this. Not anymore." Richard stood slowly, his face turning red. "You're refusing a direct assignment after that mess you made with the Price contract?" Omari stood too, his hands clenched. Every cell in his body screamed at him to back down, to apologize, to fall in line. But then he remembered Latoya's tears. He remembered Jess's words about settling down. He remembered looking in the mirror and hating the man staring back at him. Omari said, "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't." $80,000 bonus. Richard interrupted. "Close this deal and you'll never have to worry about money again. Plus, I'll personally recommend you for junior partner." The number hit Omari like a truck. 80,000, junior partner, everything he'd worked for. His mama's house needed a new roof. His little sister's college tuition was coming due. This could change everything. Richard saw him wavering. "Think about it over lunch. But Omari, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Don't be stupid." Omari left the office feeling like he was being pulled in two directions. His phone buzzed, a text from Jess. "Lunch today? Need to talk about dating tips. Finally ready to settle down." Omari stared at the message, then at the folder in his hands with Anakan's picture. What if he could do this differently? What if he could approach her honestly, help her with investments legitimately, and earn the bonus fairly? But deep down, as he opened his laptop to research Anakan Odafia, he knew he was already lying to himself. The descent had begun. Omari closed his laptop and rubbed his face. This was wrong, so wrong. But the folder from Richard sat on his table like a devil on his shoulder. $80,000. Junior partner. His mama's roof. His sister's tuition. His phone buzzed. A text from Richard. Status update? Omari's fingers hovered over the keyboard. He could quit right now, walk away, find another job. But jobs like this didn't grow on trees, especially not in a recession. And he'd already burned bridges with his reputation. He typed back, "I'm on it." Then Omari did something that surprised even himself. He Googled churches near Buckhead, Atlanta. If he was going to do this, he needed to understand her world, truly understand it, not just fake it. Grace Community Church popped up first, 5-star reviews, active youth ministry, and according to Anakan's Facebook, she volunteered there every Wednesday and Sunday. Omari stared at the church's website. A banner across the top read, "Everyone welcome. Come as you are." Come as you are, he repeated bitterly. But he wasn't coming as himself. He was coming as a lie. Still, he clicked service times and added Sunday to his calendar. As he finally crawled into bed at 3 a.m, Omari wondered if he'd crossed a line he could never uncross. He thought about Latoya's hurt face. He thought about Jess's disappointment. But most of all, he thought about Anakan's smile in those photos. So trusting, so pure. And he knew that smile would haunt him forever once he destroyed it. Walking into Grace Community Church that Sunday morning, Omari felt like a fraud wrapped in a Sunday suit. The building was beautiful, red brick with stained glass windows that made rainbow patterns on the sidewalk. Families streamed through the doors dressed in their best clothes. Kids laughed and chased each other. Older folks hugged and caught up on gossip. Everyone seemed to know everyone. Omari didn't belong here. He wore a navy blue suit, white shirt, no tie, trying to look respectful but not overdressed. His palms were sweating. The smell of coffee and donuts drifted from the lobby. A greeter, an older black woman with kind eyes and a church hat covered in flowers, smiled at him. "Welcome, baby. First time visiting us?" "Yes, ma'am," Omari said, his mama's training kicking in. "Well, you're right on time. Service starts in 5 minutes. We're so glad you're here." She handed him a program and a visitor card. "Fill this out if you want to learn more about our church family." Church family. The words felt warm and foreign at the same time. Omari found a seat in the back, trying to stay invisible. But as the choir started singing, something unexpected happened. The music was powerful, drums, keyboards, voices lifting up in harmony. People around him raised their hands, swaying, singing with their whole hearts. An elderly man in front of him had tears streaming down his face. This wasn't fake. Whatever these people had, it was real. Then he saw her. Anakan Odafia stood in the 3rd row, singing with her eyes closed, hands lifted. She wore a simple yellow dress, her natural hair pulled back with a headband, no makeup, no jewelry except small gold earrings. She was the most beautiful thing Omari had ever seen. When the pastor started preaching, Omari tried to focus, but his eyes kept drifting to Anakan. She took notes in a worn Bible, nodding along, completely absorbed. During the altar call, she went forward to pray with someone who was crying. After service, Omari lingered near the coffee table, pretending to fix his cup. His heart raced as Anakan walked toward the refreshments with two teenage girls laughing about something. "And then Marcus tried to dunk a basketball and fell flat on his face," one girl said. Anakan laughed, the sound like music. "See, that's why I stick to running track." Omari's hand shook as he accidentally bumped into her while reaching for creamer. "Oh, I'm so sorry," Anakan said, even though it was his fault. Her eyes met his, and they were even more beautiful up close. Warm, brown with flakes of gold. "No, that was all me," Omari said, flashing his most genuine smile. "I'm still getting used to church coffee. Been a while." Anakan's whole face lit up. "First time at Grace?" "First time in any church in about 10 years. Omari admitted. That part was true. "Well, welcome back." She extended her hand. "I'm Anakan." Omari. Her handshake was firm but gentle. Warm. "What made you come today, Omari?" He prepared this answer, practiced it in the mirror. But looking into her hopeful, honest face, the lie tasted like poison. "I've been searching for something," he said slowly. "I don't know what exactly, but I'm hoping I'll find it here." Anakan squeezed his hand before letting go. "You'll find it. God brought you here for a reason." As she walked away to rejoin her youth group, Omari stood frozen, coffee forgotten. He'd expected this to be easy, smile, charm, manipulate. But Anakan's kindness wasn't a weakness to exploit. It was something sacred. And he was about to destroy it. 3 weeks later, Omari found himself actually reading the Bible at midnight, and it terrified him how much it was starting to make sense. He'd become a regular at Grace Community Church, Wednesday night Bible study, Sunday morning service, even Friday youth group where he volunteered to help set up chairs. Anakan had invited him to join her small group, 6 people who met at a coffee shop in Virginia Highland every Thursday evening. Tonight, they sat around a table at Java Jive, discussing the book of James. Omari had actually done the homework reading this time, not because Richard was breathing down his neck for updates, but because he wanted to understand what Anakan and the others were talking about. She'd started calling him O last week, and he loved how it sounded in her voice. Soft, friendly, like he was somebody worth knowing. Omari swallowed hard. I think a lot of people, including me, have spent their whole lives saying one thing but doing another. We talk about what's right, but when it comes down to it, we choose what's easy instead. The table went quiet. Anakan reached over and touched his arm. That's really honest, O. Growth starts with admitting where we fall short. After Bible study, Anakan asked if he wanted to walk around Piedmont Park. The spring air was perfect. Cool breeze, stars starting to peek out, the sound of laughter from people having picnics. They bought ice cream from a vendor and strolled past the lake. "Can I ask you something personal?" Anakan said, licking her strawberry cone. Omari's stomach clenched. "Sure." "What made you stop going to church? You said it's been 10 years. He'd prepared a lie for this too, but sitting here with her, watching the moonlight reflect in the water, Omari found himself telling pieces of the truth. "I got caught up in trying to be successful, making money, impressing people. I thought if I had the right job, the right car, the right everything, I'd be happy, but I just felt empty." "And now?" Anakan asked softly. "Now I'm starting to think maybe I was chasing the wrong things." Anakan stopped walking and turned to face him. "Oh, I can see God working in your life. I know we just met a few weeks ago, but I feel like he sent you here for a reason. Maybe you exactly where you need to be." Omari's chest tightened. She believed in him. Actually believed he was becoming a better person. And the worst part? He was starting to believe it too. He'd barely reported anything useful to Richard. No financial information, no investment opportunities, just vague updates about building trust. Richard was getting impatient, sending angry texts demanding results. But every time Omari thought about betraying Anakan, his stomach turned. She was teaching him to pray, sharing her favorite Bible verses, introducing him to her church family like he was someone special. "Thank you," Omari said, his voice rough, "for believing in me." Anakan smiled, and in that moment, Omari realized something terrifying. He wasn't pretending anymore. His fake faith was becoming real, and his fake friendship with Anakan, that was becoming something much more dangerous. He was falling for her. Omari's phone buzzed during Sunday service, and the text from Richard felt like a bomb going off in his pocket. "Meeting Monday, 9 a.m. Bring results or bring your resignation." The pastor was preaching about honesty and integrity, and Omari wanted to sink through the floor. Sweat dripped down his back despite the church's air conditioning. Anakan sat beside him, completely focused on the sermon, occasionally jotting notes in her Bible. She had no idea that the man sitting next to her was a liar. After church, Jess pulled him aside in the parking lot. They hadn't talked much lately. Omar had been too busy with his church project, as he called it. "Bro, you look terrible," Jess said bluntly. "What's going on?" Omari glanced around to make sure no one could hear. "I'm in too deep, man. Way too deep. The church girl, Anakan, her name is Anakan, and she's amazing. She's pure and kind, and she actually believes I'm becoming a better person. But it's all a lie. I'm there because my boss told me to get close to her for her money." Jess's eyes widened. "Wait, what? You serious right now?" "Dead serious." Omari leaned against his car, feeling like he might throw up. "I was supposed to charm her, get financial info, set up meetings. But Jess, I can't do it. Every time I'm with her, I feel like the worst person alive." "Then stop." Jess grabbed his shoulders. "Walk away. Tell your boss no. Tell Anakan the truth." "I can't tell her the truth. It'll destroy her. She'll never trust anyone again. And Richard will blacklist me from every firm in Atlanta. My career will be over. My mama's roof." "Your mama would rather live under a leaky roof than have a son who's a liar," Jess interrupted. "Come on, O. You know this is wrong." Omari did know. That was the problem. 3 months ago, he'd have closed this deal without a second thought. But something had changed. Maybe it was reading the Bible every night. Maybe it was seeing real faith up close. Maybe it was Anakin's smile. Or maybe it was Latoya's hurt face still haunting his dreams. "I'm trying to figure out a way to fix this," Omari said desperately. "Maybe I can convince Richard to let me approach her honestly. Maybe I can—" "You're fooling yourself," Jess said sadly. "You gotta choose, bro. Your career or your soul. You can't have both." That night, Omari sat in his apartment with a Bible in one hand and his phone in the other. Richard's text glared at him, final warning. Anakan had sent a message too. "Hey, O, thanks for volunteering with the youth group today. The kids love you. I love having you around. You're becoming such a blessing to our church family. Loving her curly heart." Omari read her message 10 times, each word cutting deeper. She loved having him around. The kids loved him. They all thought he was genuine. He opened his laptop to type his resignation letter, but his fingers froze over the keyboard. If he quit, Richard would make sure he never worked in finance again. Everything he'd built would crumble. His mama's house, his sister's college,
his entire future. But if he stayed... Omari looked at the Bible. He just read a verse that morning. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? I can't keep doing this, he whispered to the empty room. But even as he said it, he didn't know which choice he'd make. The double life was eating him alive, and Monday morning was coming fast.
When Anakan asked Omari to stay after Bible study to talk privately, he knew the moment of truth had arrived, but not the one he expected. They sat in the empty coffee shop, chairs stacked on tables around them. The owner, Miss Paulette, was in the back doing dishes and had told them to take their time. Anakin's hands wrapped around her mug of chamomile tea, and Omari noticed they were shaking slightly. "Oh, I need to tell you something," she said, not meeting his eyes, "and I'm scared it might change how you see me." Omari's heart hammered. Did she know? Had someone told her about his past? "You can tell me anything, Anakan." She took a deep breath. "I've never had a boyfriend, never been in love, never even been kissed." Her cheeks flushed. "I know that's weird for someone who's 28, but I've been waiting for someone who shares my faith, someone who understands why it matters to me." Relief and guilt crashed over Omari in equal waves. She didn't know about his deception, but what she was saying was somehow worse. "I think you're that person, Anakan continued, finally looking at him. Her eyes were wet. "These past 2 months have been... God keeps putting you in my path, in my prayers, in my heart. And I know it's fast, but when you know, right?" Omari felt like he was falling off a cliff. "Anakan, let me finish." She smiled nervously. "I talked to my pastor about you, about us. He said I should be honest about my feelings instead of playing games. So here it is. Omari Matthews, I'm falling in love with you." The words should have felt like victory, mission accomplished. She was vulnerable, open, ready to trust him with everything, including access to her fortune. Richard would be thrilled. But all Omari felt was sheer crushing agony. "I need to tell you something too," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. This was it. He had to come clean, had to tell her everything before this went any further. But then Anakan reached across the table and took his hand. "Is it that you feel the same way?" Omari looked into her hopeful, beautiful face. He thought about her pure heart, her innocent trust, her belief that God had brought them together. If he told her the truth now, that he'd been sent by his boss to manipulate her, that he pretended to find faith to get close to her money, it would shatter her. She wouldn't just lose trust in him, she'd lose trust in her own judgment, in her church community who'd welcomed him, maybe even in God himself. "Yes," Omari heard himself say, "I feel the same way." Anakin's smile was brighter than the sun. She squeezed his hand. "Really?" "Really." And shockingly, it wasn't entirely a lie. Somewhere in the middle of all his deception, Omari had actually fallen for her. Her laugh, her kindness, the way she saw the best in everyone, the way she made him want to be better. "Can I hug you?" Anakan asked shyly. Omari stood and pulled her into his arms. She fit perfectly against his chest, her head tucked under his chin. She smelled like vanilla and hope. As he held her, Omari felt tears burning behind his eyes. "Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for coming to church. Thank you for letting God work in your life. You're an answer to my prayers, Omari held her tighter, knowing that he was actually the devil in disguise. He just had the perfect opportunity to confess everything, and he'd chosen the lie, chosen to keep deceiving this woman who loved him with her whole heart. That night, as Omari drove home, his phone rang. "Richard." "Tell me you got good news, Matthews." Omari's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "She's in love with me." "Excellent.
Time to seal the deal. Set up a meeting with her financial advisors. Tell her you're looking into investment opportunities and want to learn from the best, whatever it takes. Richard, I don't think you're not paid to think. You're paid to close. I want that meeting by Friday or you're finished. The line went dead. Omari pulled over to the side of the road and put his head on the steering wheel. He told Anakan he loved her. He crossed the final line, and now Richard wanted him to use that love to rob her blind. Jess was right. He had to choose his career or his soul. But as Omari sat in his car on that dark Atlanta street, he realized he'd already made his choice. He'd chosen wrong, and there was no going back now. Omari was holding Anakin's hand at a church picnic when he saw Latoya Price standing across the park, and her smile promised nothing but destruction. The spring day had been perfect until that moment. Grace Community Church had rented out a section of Piedmont Park for their annual fellowship cookout. Kids ran through the grass playing tag. The smell of burgers and hot dogs filled the air. Anakin laughed as Marcus tried to beat her at cornhole, her yellow sundress swaying in the breeze. Omari had almost convinced himself that everything would be okay, that he could make this work, that somehow his lies would turn into truth and nobody would get hurt. Then he saw her. Latoya stood near the parking lot in designer jeans and a silk blouse, dark sunglasses covering her eyes. But he knew that stance, that energy. She'd come here looking for him. "Oh, you okay?" Anakan squeezed his hand. "You look like you saw a ghost." Yeah, just thought I saw someone from work." The lie came so easily now, too easily. "Well, come on. Pastor Mike is about to say grace." Anakan pulled him towards the picnic tables where everyone was gathering. Omari glanced back. Latoya was walking towards them, moving with the confidence of a woman who owned the world. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. During the prayer, Omari kept his eyes open, watching Latoya circle the edge of the gathering like a shark. After the amen, Latoya approached their table where Omari sat with Anakan and the youth group. "Excuse me," Latoya said, her voice sweet as poison honey. "I'm looking for the pastor. I'm interested in learning more about this wonderful church community."
Anakin lit up instantly. "Oh, that's amazing. Pastor Mike is right over there by the grill. I'm Anakan, by the way." "Latoya Price." They shook hands. Then Latoya's eyes landed on Omari, and her smile turned razor sharp. "And you must be?" "This is O." Anakin beamed, completely oblivious to the danger. "My boyfriend. He just started coming to Grace a few months ago. Isn't God good?" "God is very good," Latoya said slowly, "and very revealing. Nice to meet you, O. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of each other." She walked away, but not before giving Omari a look that made his blood run cold. He knew exactly what she was doing here. She'd figured out his game with Anakin, and she was going to blow it all up. "She seemed nice," Anakin said innocently. Omari couldn't breathe. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number that he knew was Latoya. "We need to talk. Tonight. Unless you want to tell your sweet girlfriend who you really are." The burger in his stomach turned to stone. Jess had warned him this day would come, but Omari had been too deep in his lies to listen. Now his past had caught up with him, and it was wearing Chanel sunglasses and a smile that promised revenge. By Wednesday night Bible study, half the church had heard rumors about Omari Matthews, and none of them were good. It started small. A question here. A concerned look there. During worship practice, two of the older women stopped talking when Omari walked by. At the church coffee counter, a man he'd never met before gave him a suspicious glance. Anakin hadn't noticed yet. She was too focused on preparing her youth lesson. But Omari felt the shift in the atmosphere like a coming storm. After Bible study, Pastor Mike pulled him aside. He was a broad-shouldered man in his 50s, with gray in his beard and wisdom in his eyes. "Son, can we talk in my office?"
Omari's mouth went dry. Of course, Pastor. The office was small but welcoming, bookshelves packed with theology books, family photos on the desk, a worn Bible open on the side table. Pastor Mike gestured to a chair and sat across from him, not behind his desk, like they were equals. I've been hearing some things, Pastor Mike said gently, about your past, about your relationship history with women, about questionable business practices. There it was. Latoya had started talking. I want to hear your side, the pastor continued, because the man I've gotten to know these past months doesn't match what I'm hearing. But I also can't ignore concerns from my congregation, especially when it involves one of my youth leaders. Omari's mind raced. He could deny everything, blame Latoya for being a bitter ex, play the victim, but looking into Pastor Mike's kind, knowing eyes, the lies caught in his throat. Some of it's true, Omari admitted quietly. I haven't always been a good man. I've used people, hurt people, especially women. Pastor Mike nodded, not with judgment, but with understanding. And Anakan? Are you using her too? The question hit like a punch. Omari wanted to scream no, but was that even true? He'd started seeing her for the money, the manipulation, the job. But somewhere along the way his feelings had become real. Hadn't they? I care about her, Omari said, and his voice cracked. I really do. That's not what I asked. Silence filled the room. Somewhere in the church, the youth group was laughing. Anakan was probably teaching them about love and honesty and integrity. And here sat Omari, the living embodiment of everything she preached against. I need time, Omari finally said, to figure out how to make things right. Pastor Mike leaned forward. Son, the only way to make things right is to tell the truth before it destroys you and everyone around you. After leaving the office, Omari found Anakan waiting by his car. She looked worried, her arms wrapped around herself despite the warm Georgia night. People are talking about us, about you. Someone told me you have a bad history with women, that you're not who you say you are. Omari's heart stopped. Anakan, she told them they were wrong. Her eyes met his, desperate for confirmation. I told them you're different now, that God changed you, that you'd never lie to me about something important. Right, O? This was it. His chance to confess everything, to stop the lies before they grew bigger, to be the man he claimed to be becoming. But looking at her hopeful face, Omari chose cowardice one more time. Right, he whispered. I'd never lie to you. Anakan hugged him tight, and Omari held her while his world crumbled around them. The whispers would get louder. Latoya wouldn't stop, and the truth would come out eventually. He just prayed he'd find the courage to confess before someone else did it for him.
Sunday morning service became the worst day of Omari's life when Latoya Price stood up during testimony time and destroyed him in front of everyone. The church was packed. Families filled every pew. The choir was ready, and Pastor Mike had just asked if anyone wanted to share what God was doing in their lives. Hands went up. People shared stories of healing, provision, answered prayers. Then Latoya stood. Omari felt his soul leave his body. She was in the back row, dressed respectably in a modest dress and cardigan. She looked like she belonged there, like she was one of them. Good morning, church family, Latoya said, her voice steady. My name is Latoya Price, and I need to share something that's been weighing on my heart. Anakan sat beside Omari, curious but not alarmed. She had no idea what was coming. I'm here because I believe in honesty and protecting the innocent, Latoya continued, her voice getting stronger.
A few months ago, I met a man named Omari Matthews. He worked for a consulting firm that my company partnered with. He was charming, smooth, said all the right things. Omari's hands gripped the pew in front of him. Around the church, people started looking around, trying to figure out who she was talking about. Omari pursued me romantically, made me feel special. We spent time together, became intimate. And then I discovered it was all a lie. He was using me to secure a contract for his company. When I confronted him, he didn't even deny it. Gasps rippled through the congregation. Anakan turned to look at Omari, her face confused. After our relationship ended, I learned about his history. Multiple women, same pattern. He targets successful women, gains their trust, uses them for business or money, then moves on. When I heard he joined this church and was dating someone, I had to investigate. And what I found broke my heart. Latoya's eyes locked on Omari. He's dating Anakan Odafia, a sweet young woman from this congregation, and I have proof that his company specifically assigned him to get close to her because of her family's wealth. Text messages, emails, meeting notes, everything. The sanctuary erupted. People turned to stare at Omari and Anakan. Someone gasped, "Oh my God!" The choir members looked shocked. Pastor Mike stood up trying to restore order. But Omari only saw Anakan. The color had drained from her face. Her hands trembled. Her eyes, those beautiful, trusting eyes, filled with tears as she looked at him. "Tell me it's not true," she whispered. "Oh, please, tell me she's lying." Omari opened his mouth, but no words came out. What could he say? Latoya had proof. Everything she said was true. All of it. "Oh," Anakin's voice broke. "Say something." "I can explain," Omari started. "So it is true?" Anakan stood up, backing away from him like he was diseased. "You used me. Everything. The church, the Bible study, the prayers, saying you loved me. All of it was fake?" "No, Anakan, my feelings are real." "Liar!" she screamed, and the entire church went silent. Sweet, gentle Anakan, who never raised her voice, was sobbing in front of everyone. "You said God brought us together. You said you were changing. How could you do this to me?" She ran out of the sanctuary, her cries echoing off the walls. Several women from the youth ministry chased after her. The entire congregation stared at Omari with disgust, anger, betrayal. Pastor Mike's voice cut through the chaos. "I think you need to leave, son." Omari stood on shaking legs. He wanted to chase after Anakan, explain, apologize, but Jess appeared at his side. When had Jess gotten there? And grabbed his arm. "Come on, man, before this gets worse." As Jess dragged him toward the exit, Omari saw Latoya still standing in the back. She wasn't smiling. If anything, she looked sad. But she'd accomplished what she came for. She'd exposed the truth, and the truth had destroyed everything. By Monday afternoon, Omari had lost his job, his reputation, and any hope of redemption, and the worst part was knowing he deserved it all. The email from Richard came at 9 a.m. Effective immediately, your employment with Whittemore and Associates is terminated. Do not return to the office. Security will mail your personal items. Short, cold, final. Omari sat in his apartment in the same clothes he'd worn to church, still smelling like betrayal and broken promises. His phone had been blowing up all morning, text messages from people at church, calls from former coworkers, even a voicemail from his mama asking what happened. Someone from her church had heard the story. The worst part? He couldn't even defend himself. Everything Latoya said was true. Jess came over around noon with food that Omari couldn't eat. They sat in silence for a long time before Jess finally spoke. "I tried to warn you, bro." "I know. I told you to come clean before it got to this." "I know. So why didn't you?" Jess's voice wasn't angry, just sad, disappointed. You had so many chances, O. Why'd you keep lying? Omari stared at his hands, the same hands that had held Anakin's, that had been raised in worship during church services, that had turned pages in a Bible he'd started actually believing in. Because I'm a coward, he said simply. I knew telling the truth would hurt her, would cost me everything, so I kept hoping I could somehow make it work, fix it without anyone getting hurt. But that was just another lie. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a group text from old friends he'd partied with before his church phase. They'd seen the drama on social media. Someone had recorded Latoya's testimony, and it was going viral.
Bro, you got exposed in church? That's cold. Should have stuck to the clubs, my guy. Church girls too complicated. You actually fell for her? Never fall for the mark, man. Rule number 1. Omari threw his phone across the room. It hit the wall but didn't break. Just like him. Damaged but still functioning. Still able to feel the pain of what he'd done. Richard called me this morning, Jess said quietly. Told me to distance myself from you if I want to keep my job at the firm. Omari looked up horrified. Jess, no. Just smiled slightly. You my brother. Had been since Howard. I'm not abandoning you now, even if you are a complete idiot. That broke something in Omari. Tears he'd been holding back since yesterday finally fell. He cried for Anakin's broken heart, for his mama's disappointment, for the man he could have been if he'd made better choices, for the faith he tasted but corrupted with his lies. I don't know how to fix this, Omari sobbed. I don't know how to make it right. Just moved to the couch and put an arm around his shoulders. Maybe you can't fix it, bro. Maybe some things stay broken, but you can still choose what kind of man you become after this. Later that evening, Omari's laptop dinged with a new email. It was from Anakan. His heart lurched when he opened it. Don't contact me. Don't come to my church. Don't try to explain. I trusted you with my heart, and you treated it like a business transaction. I'll pray for you, Omari, because that's what my faith teaches me. But I never want to see you again. You broke something in me that I don't know if I can repair. I hope whatever you got from lying to me was worth it. Omari read the email 10 times, each word cutting deeper. She'd signed it Anakan, not Anna or any of the sweet nicknames they developed. Just her full name, formal, final, done. He'd gotten exactly what he deserved, but knowing that didn't make it hurt any less. The collapse was complete. Now came the question, would he stay in the rubble or would he find the courage to rebuild? Sitting in the parking lot of Grace Community Church at 2 a.m., Omari finally understood that real change required real sacrifice. He shouldn't be here. Anakan had specifically told him to stay away. But Omari wasn't here for her. He was here for himself and for God, if God would even listen to someone like him. The church was dark except for a small light by the entrance. Omari sat in his car staring at the building where he pretended to find faith, where he sung worship songs while plotting manipulation, where he held Anakin's hand while lying through his teeth. His Bible sat on the passenger seat, the one Anakin had given him with his name embossed on the cover. He'd been reading it for hours, and one passage kept jumping out at him from the book of Matthew. You cannot serve both God and money. That was his whole problem. He tried to serve both, tried to find faith while chasing wealth, tried to become a better man while keeping his old ambitions, tried to love Anakin while using her for profit. You can't build a house on 2 foundations. Eventually, you have to choose. Omari's phone buzzed. Another text from Mama. Baby, I heard what happened. Come home. We need to talk. Home. His childhood house in South Atlanta, where Mama raised him and his sister alone after Daddy left, where she'd worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table,
where she dragged them to church every Sunday despite their complaints. He'd been so desperate to escape that life, to prove he was better than his father, to make enough money that his mama would never struggle again. But in trying to save her, he'd become just like his daddy, a man who hurt women and broke promises. Omari got out of his car and walked to the church entrance. He didn't expect it to be open, but he tried the door anyway. To his shock, it swung inward. He stepped into the dark sanctuary, moonlight streaming through the stained glass windows, casting colored shadows on the empty pews. He walked to the altar where Anakan used to pray every Sunday, the same spot where she cried over him when Latoya exposed his lies. Omari fell to his knees, and for the first time in his life, he prayed without pretending. "God, I don't even know if you're listening," he whispered into the darkness. "I've lied so much I don't know how to be real anymore. I used your church, I used your people, I used the woman who actually loved you, and I broke her heart. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know that. But I'm so tired of being this person. I'm tired of the lies, the games, the emptiness. I thought I could change on my own, keep my job, keep my reputation, and somehow become a better man. But I can't serve both. I finally get it. So I'm choosing you, even if it costs me everything. Even if I end up broke and alone, even if Anakan never forgive me. I'm choosing faith over money, truth over comfort, the right path instead of the easy one." He stayed there for an hour, crying, praying, letting go of the man he'd been. When he finally stood up, something had shifted. The weight on his chest felt lighter. Not going. The consequences of his choices would follow him for a long time, but lighter. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Mama. "Baby, whatever you did, it's not too late to make it right. Come home." Omari looked around the empty church one last time. He thought about Anakin's smile, Pastor Mike's kindness, the Bible study group they'd welcomed him. He destroyed all of that through his selfishness. But maybe destruction was necessary. Maybe he had to lose everything to find out who he really was underneath all the lies. Omari walked out of the church and got in his car. He didn't know what came next, didn't know how he'd pay rent or find a new job or face his family. But for the first time in months, he wasn't running from the truth. He was walking toward it, even if it meant walking through fire. The reckoning had come, and Omari Matthews was finally ready to face it.
Walking into Richard Whitmore's office to officially quit was the scariest and freest thing Omari had ever done. He wasn't supposed to be there. The termination email had been clear, but Omari needed to do this face to face, needed to look Richard in the eye and choose differently this time. Security tried to stop him in the lobby, but he pushed past them, taking the elevator to the 14th floor one last time. Richard looked up from his desk, surprised and annoyed. "Matthews, you were told not to come back. Security." "I just need 5 minutes, then I'll leave forever," Omari said, holding up his hands. Richard waved off the security guard hovering at the door. "Make it quick, though I can't imagine what you have to say that I want to hear." Omari stood tall, even though his knees shook. He rehearsed this speech during the drive over, but now the words felt different, more real. "I came to tell you that I'm glad you fired me. You did me a favor." Rich's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me? This job, this company, this whole way of doing business, it was killing my soul piece by piece. You taught me how to charm people, manipulate them, use their weaknesses to close deals, and I was good at it. Too good." Omari's voice got stronger. "But being good at something evil doesn't make it right." "Spare me the sermon," Richard sneered. "You got caught. Don't act like you suddenly grew a conscience."
You right. I got caught and it destroyed everything. But you know what? That destruction saved my life. Omari pulled out an envelope from his jacket. This is my official resignation letter. I know you already fired me, but I need to do this my way. I choose to walk away from this career, this lifestyle, and everything it represents. Richard laughed coldly. Noble speech, but what are you going to do now? You're blacklisted in this industry. No firm in Atlanta will touch you. You threw away a promising career for what? A church girl who hates you? The words meant to hurt, but Omari felt strangely calm. I threw it away for myself because I finally realized that gaining the whole world means nothing if you lose your soul in the process. He placed the envelope on Rich's desk. I'm done being the man you trained me to be. I'd rather be broke and honest than rich and empty. As Omari turned to leave, Richard called after him. You'll be back. They always come back when reality hits and the bills pile up. You're not strong enough to walk away from this life. Omari paused at the door and looked back. You wrong. I'm not strong enough, but God is, and that's what I'm counting on now. He walked out with security escorting him, past the cubicles where his former co-workers pretended not to stare, past the conference room where he celebrated big deals with champagne, past the life he spent 10 years building. When he stepped out onto the Atlanta street, the afternoon sun hit his face, and Omari felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. His phone buzzed, a text from his mama. Proud of you, baby. Come home for dinner tonight. Omari smiled through tears. He lost his job, his reputation, and the woman he loved. But he found something more valuable, the courage to choose right over easy. And that was worth more than any salary Richard Whitmore could have offered him. The old Omari was dead. Now came the hard work of becoming someone new. Pastor Mike's office felt different this time, not like a place of judgment, but like a hospital where Omari's broken soul could finally start healing. It had taken Omari 2 weeks to work up the courage to come back to Grace Community Church. 2 weeks of living with his mama in his childhood bedroom, helping her around the house, and reading his Bible every morning. 2 weeks of wrestling with shame, guilt, and the question that haunted him. Could someone like him really change? Pastor Mike welcomed him with a firm handshake and a knowing look. I wondered when you come back. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me, Omari admitted, sitting in the same chair where he lied about his intentions months ago. Son, my door is always open, especially for people who are genuinely seeking change. Pastor Mike leaned back in his chair. I've been praying for you, for Anakan too. This has been hard on everyone. The mention of Anakan's name made Omari's chest tighten. How is she? Healing, slowly. She's taken some time away from youth ministry to focus on herself, but she's strong. Stronger than you probably realized. Pastor Mike's eyes were kind but firm. She'll be okay. The question is, will you? Omari took a deep breath. That's why I'm here. I've been reading my Bible, praying, trying to figure out what comes next. I quit my job. Well, officially resigned after they fired me. I'm living with my mama, working part-time at a warehouse to pay my bills. Everything I built is gone. And how does that feel? Honestly, Omari thought about it. Terrifying, but also freeing. Like I'm finally building on solid ground instead of sand. Pastor Mike nodded. That's the foundation of real transformation. Jesus talked about 2 men who built houses, one on rock, one on sand. When the storms came, only one house survived. You've been living on sand, Omari. The storm knocked your house down, but that means you can rebuild the right way this time.
1 year after his public exposure, Omari Matthews stood in front of a group of troubled teenage boys and told them the truth about who he used to be. The church basement was modest, folding chairs arranged in a circle, inspirational posters on the walls, the smell of pizza from the dinner they just shared. 10 young men sat watching Omari with varying degrees of skepticism. They ranged from 16 to 21, all referred to the program by schools, courts, or desperate parents. They'd heard every lecture, every morning, every inspirational speech from people who never walked in their shoes. Omari was different. "My name is Omari, and I'm an assistant youth mentor here at Grace Community Church. A year ago, I stood in this church's sanctuary and got exposed in front of everyone. A woman I used told the whole congregation about my lies. Another woman I was manipulating had her heart broken publicly. I lost my job, my reputation, and any respect I'd earned." The boys leaned forward. This wasn't a typical church talk. "I was a playboy, a user, a manipulator. I hurt women to get ahead in business. I faked faith to get close to someone's money. I lied so much I stopped knowing what truth even felt like." Omari's voice was steady but raw. "And the worst part? I thought I was smart. Thought I'd get away with it. Thought the rules didn't apply to me." "What changed?" asked Marcus, a 17-year-old who reminded Omari of his younger self, charming, smart, and heading down a dark path. "I lost everything," Omari said simply. "And in that loss, I found out who I really was underneath all the lies. Turns out I was empty, scared, desperate for worth, but looking in all the wrong places." For the next hour, they talked, really talked, about pressure to be successful, about using people before they use you, about the hustle culture that treats relationships like transactions, about the loneliness that comes from never being real with anyone. "So you saying we should just be nice guys and let people walk all over us?" challenged Darius, a 19-year-old with trust issues and a police record. "No," Omari said. "I'm saying there's a difference between being strong and being cruel, between protecting yourself and destroying others. Real strength is having power and choosing not to abuse it. Real success is building something that doesn't require you to tear other people down." After the session, Marcus approached Omari. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "Do you ever regret changing? Like you had money, respect, women. Now you working part-time in a warehouse and volunteering at a church. Was it worth it?" Omari thought about his studio apartment, his used car, his modest paycheck. Then he thought about being able to look himself in the mirror, about his mama's pride, about sleeping peacefully at night without guilt eating him alive. "Every single day, I'm grateful I lost everything. Because what I gained, peace, purpose, integrity, is worth more than anything I had before. I was rich and miserable. Now I'm broken free. I take freedom every time." Marcus nodded slowly, processing. "My dad wants me to go into business. Says nice guys finish last. Nice guys might finish last in the short run, but liars finish alone. Trust me, I know." As the boys left, Pastor Mike approached with a smile. "You're good at this, really good. The boys respond to you because you're real with them." "I'm just telling them what I wish someone had told me at their age." "That's exactly what makes you effective." Pastor Mike handed him a folder. "I've been talking to the board. We want to offer you a full-time position as assistant youth pastor. It comes with a salary, benefits, and real responsibility. What do you say?" Omari stared at the folder, overwhelmed.
A year ago, he'd been a six-figure consultant chasing wealth and status. Now he was being offered a modest church salary to work with troubled kids. It was the easiest decision he ever made. Yes, Omari said, shaking Pastor Mike's hand. Absolutely yes. That night, Omari called his mama with the news. She cried, happy tears, called him her prodigal son who came home. Then he called Jess, who stuck by him through everything. Assistant youth pastor, Jess laughed. Man, God has a sense of humor. The former playboy is now leading young men towards righteousness. Former is right, Omari said firmly. That man is dead. I'm someone new now. I can tell, bro. I'm proud of you, for real. As Omari hung up, he looked around his small apartment. No expensive furniture, no designer clothes, no luxury. But on his wall hung a framed photo from his baptism 3 months ago. Him emerging from the water with Pastor Mike beside him, genuine joy on his face. The old life was gone. The new life had begun. And for the first time in his 33 years, Omari Matthews was exactly who he claimed to be. Honest, humble, redeemed.
2 years after his fall, Omari stood before Grace Community Church during Sunday service, and this time his testimony was one of victory, not exposure. The sanctuary was packed. Omari wore a simple suit, nothing flashy, and his Bible was worn from actual use, not for show. His mama sat in the third row, crying proud tears. Jess sat beside her with his new wife, both beaming. Even some of the boys from the youth program had come to support him. Pastor Mike stood at the pulpit. Church family, today is a special day. 2 years ago, this church witnessed a painful moment of truth. But today, we celebrate what God can do with a broken life surrendered to Him. Please welcome Assistant Youth Pastor Omari Matthews. The applause was cautious at first. Many remembered his betrayal. But then it grew warmer as Omari walked to the front, and he saw acceptance mixed with the wariness. "Good morning, church," Omari said, his voice steady. "Most of you know my story. 2 years ago, I sat in these pews as a fraud. I pretended to find faith so I could manipulate someone for money. I used this sacred community for selfish gain. And I hurt people, especially one person in ways I'll regret for the rest of my life." The sanctuary was silent. Everyone remembered. I don't stand here today to make excuses or ask for your pity. I stand here as evidence that God really can change hearts. That transformation is possible when we stop running from truth and start running toward it. He pulled out a letter, worn and read many times. "A year ago, I wrote an apology to the woman I hurt. I never expected a response. But 6 months ago, I received this." He held it up. She wrote, "I'm glad to hear you're helping young men avoid your mistakes. Keep doing that work. You can't undo the past, but you can shape a better future for others. That's redemption." Omari's voice cracked. "Anakan, if you're watching this somehow, thank you. Your grace taught me more about God's love than any sermon ever could." He looked out at the congregation. "I've been assistant youth pastor for a year now. I work with young men who remind me of my younger self, hurting, ambitious, making destructive choices. Every week I tell them my story, all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because they need to know that change is possible, but consequences are real." He pulled out his phone and showed a text on the screen. "This week, one of my students, Marcus, got accepted to college. 2 years ago, he was headed to prison. Another student, Darius, reconciled with his father after I helped them have an honest conversation. These are the victories that matter now. I used to measure success by my bank account and job title. Now I measure it by whether I can sleep peacefully at night, by whether my mama is proud of me, by whether the young men in my program see a real example of integrity, not just empty words. He closed his Bible. I'm not a perfect man. I still struggle, still have bad days, still battle the old voices that say I could have more, be more if I just compromised a little. But I've learned that integrity costs everything and is worth everything. That real love serves instead of takes. That faith without honesty is just religion, and religion without transformation is worthless. The applause started slowly, then built like a wave. People stood. His mama was openly weeping. Even some of the older women who'd been coldest to him were nodding with approval. But Omari barely noticed. His eyes were on the back of the church where a familiar figure stood. Latoya Price, dressed simply, had slipped in during his testimony. Their eyes met across the sanctuary, and she gave him a small nod of respect. She was his accuser, his exposure, his reckoning, and now she was witnessing his redemption. After service, Latoya approached him in the lobby. "That was a good testimony." "Thank you," Omari said, "and thank you for exposing me. I hated you for it at the time, but you did me the biggest favor of my life." Latoya studied him. "You really different. I can see it in your eyes. The smooth-talking player is gone." "Dead and buried," Omari confirmed. "I'm sorry for what I did to you, for using you. You deserve better." "Yes, I did," Latoya said firmly. "But I forgive you. I've moved on, and I'm glad you have too." She extended her hand. "I hope you keep helping those young men. The world needs fewer versions of who you were and more versions of who you're becoming." They shook hands, not as enemies, not as lovers, but as two people who survived a painful chapter and came out wiser. As Omari watched her leave, Pastor Mike approached him. "How does it feel?" "Like coming home, really coming home this time." That evening, Omari sat in his modest apartment looking at photos on his phone. His youth group at a retreat, his mama at his baptism, Jess at his wedding, the boys he mentored graduating, getting jobs, staying out of trouble. This was his legacy now, not money or status or conquest, but lives changed, hearts healed, young men choosing better paths because someone who walked the wrong one showed them the way back. Omari opened his Bible to the verse he'd memorized. "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come." The old Omari was gone. The playboy, the manipulator, the liar. In his place stood a man of integrity, a mentor, a servant leader, a living testimony that redemption isn't just possible, it's powerful. Omari's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Thanks for believing in me, Pastor O. I'm gonna make you proud." Omari smiled and typed back, "You already have." As he set his phone down and prepared for evening prayers, Omari Matthews, former playboy, redeemed sinner, assistant youth pastor, felt something he chased his whole life but never found through money, women, or status. He felt complete. The journey from deception to redemption was complete, and the man who emerged from the fire was finally beautifully authentic. The end. Wow! You just witnessed Omari's complete transformation from playboy to pastor. Now that is redemption. If this story moved you, smash that like button. This story showed that nobody is too far gone for redemption. Drop a comment. What was your favorite moment? Are you Team Anakan or Team Latoya? Do you believe people can really change? And subscribe, because we have more powerful stories like this coming. Stories of love, betrayal, forgiveness, and transformation that will keep you hooked. Thank you for going on this journey with Omari. His story proves that your past doesn't define your future. Your choices today do. See you in the next story. Stay blessed.